Hi everybody, I'm Adam Steele and I am a mixing engineer and this is my reacting series. I hope you're all doing well. I usually have a coffee here, but today it's a heat wave again. So I've got my Eurotunnel drink bottle and I'm going to be drinking ice water. Feel free to drink along with me. Today we're doing a much more modern song than the last one. Last one was Walk by Pantera, which is now 30 years old or more. And so we're doing a much newer one by Within Temptation. This is, as you can see from the waveform, loud. This is Reaper, of course, and I'm using a few plugins. I'm using Brainworks BX Control, Isotopes Ozone, and WM Plus to be able to reveal things about this mix, including, I think we'll be looking at WLM quite a lot today, so I'm going to put that up there. The loudness of this thing. Let's listen from the beginning. Radio effect guitars.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
Lots and lots of volume. -6 LUFS, that is lots of volume. That's crazy volume. But yeah, this starts off straight away with kind of an almost metal cliche of there's a slight little sound here to bring the ear in so you know it's on. And then there's the AM radio style EQ filtering on this guitar, which is just a really heavy high and low pass filter, probably with some resonant peaks. If I play that with the top end solid in Ozone, there is still a tiny bit of high end in there, but it's mostly gone. And then there's this weird sample.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
Which I can hear has been edited to be on the beats. You can almost hear the chops.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
And then there's a little kind of drop here where there's just a So before we get to the vocal there, let's talk about this super modern metal mix. The low end is insane. Let's just try and solo some of that. You can see on the Ozone here, I'll just move it from behind my head. If you look at the EQ of the whole mix, it's basically just lots of low end on almost a pink noise slope. And the only way they've got away with that really is that the kick drum really shoots above that and kind of must be several dB louder than that low end before the limiting on the mix, which means that when it does limit, it kind of very quickly is just kick drum. Let's just try to see if we can isolate that kick. So there's a lot of low frequency on that kick. I can hear peaks at 80 and 60 hertz. There's probably something lower as well. I wonder if that's a sample blended in with the kick that's got a very short low end pulse, which stops it from kind of ringing in the mix. It's either that or just a really good gate. Let's mono everything and see what we hear without the sides. So just the mid. I can hear a few interesting little snare kind of fills in there, but the snare is so punchy. And the cymbal is really quite quiet and off to one side. It's there, it's kind of EQ'd into its place, but this is something I find a lot in modern metal mixes, that the top end on the drum kit, generally the overheads and the cymbals, the room mics, is really quite low down. so that it feels like the kick and snare are louder. It's kind of a psychoacoustic effect. Yeah, it's definitely there. Now that's interesting. If I solo the sides, let's just look at the sides on Ozone. There's a lot of low end in there. Let's just change that back to regular left and right. Yeah, I can hear lots of low end in the sides, which is very unusual, but makes sense to me because we don't have to follow the old cliche of, oh, no low end in the sides these days, because that's something that had to be done for things like vinyl, and now that's not actually a thing. Let's use the mono maker in BX Control and just mono the low end and see how far we can go up before it makes a big difference. There we go. Yeah, so there is a lot going on in the subs on the sides, but it makes everything sound that much bigger. And we've got that choir going on in the kind of the mids on the sides. Let's find it. Yeah, so it's almost in the same sonic spectrum as the guitars, but the guitars seem to have a slight scoop in the mids to leave space for that choiry thing, and then there's a synth higher up still. So the vocal is, again, front and center here. It's quite kind of thick in the mids, which definitely helps it fit. Let's find that kind of mid-range. I know for a long time, a lot of vocals in pop and rock and metal had a slight kind of low-mid scoop there to make it sound more kind of polished and more airy. It kind of gives the illusion of more high end, but when the mix is this busy, that's not kind of the done thing anymore. And they make up for that by having everything perfectly polished and leveled. I can hear room reverbs, echoes, all sorts of stuff on the vocals. Let's try the sides. So much low end on the sides. It's a really cool effect where they seem to have done something with kind of like a synth bass and stereoized it to make it sound huge. But yeah, we can also hear loads of kind of a room reverb and a delay and more. And can you hear on the bass there, there's a kind of a gig on the top end of it, which is probably in the 2K-ish range, and I wouldn't mind betting is something like a Dark Glass or something like that. It is in the vocal range as well, so the two are kind of not fighting each other, but it keeps the mix kind of small sounding in this section, which is very useful when it kicks into something like a chorus. I feel the cold, my heart skips a beat. Don't need your resolution, so don't hold it sort of me. For my confessions, I don't need a church. interestingly, on the right-hand side there, suddenly there's a ch comes in. Either that's an arrangement thing for the drum kit, or that's been added in as an extra sample to kind of add a little bit of energy going into this, what I can see as a drop.
I don't need a church. I don't need soul to know where it hurts. Don't pray for me.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
And there's the classic drop where you can see in that little green section there, that's because of Reaper's spectral peaks, which I have enabled, which shows me that the dominant frequency there is not low. It's much higher, where the purple stuff is a very dominant low frequency. This is very low-end heavy mix.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
Right, so there are two vocal parts here. There's a chorus, kind of choir synth underneath the main vocal, but it's still only single tracked, which is interesting to me that it used to be that you'd get to the chorus and everything would be double tracked. But I think the fact that there's a kind of a call and response vocal here is really interesting. And the main vocalist, the female vocalist, has definitely got the main bulk of the mid-range frequencies to really pull her forward here. I'm not sure who that is, but it's very much on the sides. It's very processed to be in a different physical place pan-wise. If we saw the There's the double vocal, but only done as the hook. Interesting. So that point where the main vocal goes down an octave, it gets lost in the mix a little bit, but there is a quiet higher octave behind it, and it's got that kind of stereo side thing going on, so we'll check the sides. And there we've got the hook vocal, which all the bass and the guitars cut out, so there's a drum fill, but then it's a doubled vocal, both mono, both in the middle, which gives it that full impact right in the face. And then there's what I think is a sub drop there. And here that synth from earlier has been pushed up in the mix to kind of fill the gap, so to speak. And there we've got another drop, which is the reverse vocal thing again, which seems to be quite common, but with this being a much more modern production, that has definitely been done either with a digital reverse delay or with an actual reversing of the samples in something like Pro Tools. Interestingly, because I think the vocals are so much a key for Within Temptation. Even kind of the big drum fills there, the big toms, which are quite pure sounding, are still lower than a lot of more metal bands would have them, where it would be a big kind of thing. This is much more kind of a keeping time kind of feel.
And every time you bow down your head to pray, don't pray for me.
So this has gone into a kind of a bridge section with one of those sub drops, which we can see is that dark purple bit there, which gives away that it's got this sub thing going on. And it's got what I think is a double tracked kind of ghostly vocal, which is a little further back in the mix, but is caked in reverb to give it that kind of ghostly feel, where it's not the main vocal performance, but it's definitely a vocal that carries this section.
I'm going to let you pray for me.
I'm not sure where those samples are from, but I can hear that they've very definitely been EQ band limited to really cut through with no low end, no ultra high end. Probably from some sort of 1960s film or something. But yeah, very heavily limited and compressed to really sit in one place and be mono right in the middle.
I'm going to let you pray for me.
Little bit of stereo effect on there. Let's check the sides. Yeah, I wonder if that's some sort of delay effect, like a harsh delay.
I'm going to let you pray for me.
And then there's the reverse vocal, which brings us back in so that there's something in there, so it's not just a silence gap. That second vocal seems to have a higher octave on it. I'm not sure if that was there before, but if it was, it mustn't have been as loud. If it wasn't there, it's definitely here now to add more impact to the last chorus.
And every time you bow down your head to pray, don't pray for me.
And there you've got the synths fading out. Let's just talk about the loudness of this as the last thing. How loud was this mix? It was, you see all the red lights on here? That's this song being decoded from an MP3, which I bought the MP3 to do this rather than get the CD. But it's absolutely crushing. It's at -7 LUFS is the average, including the quiet bits. For me, it's way too loud. There's no need. I mean, yes, it sounds huge. A lot of it is low end that is swallowing up the kind of volume here, which is fine. You can see all these big purple bits. Those are all low end hits and bass and all that kind of stuff. And of course, volume in decibels has to double every octave that you go down, which is why just having a straight number of you need to master or mix to this number LUFS isn't really helpful unless you have a perfectly balanced mix, which you don't have to do. This is very low end heavy, but I think for the genre, for that kind of Scandinavian ultra heavy melodic metal thing, now it's quite acceptable to have that big low end. Whereas something like, say, thrash metal doesn't have super low end because it's so fast. It needs to be slightly more even in terms of its low end to mid to highs ratio. It's like, and also the way it's been done is it's been processed almost like an EDM track, that it's so heavily compressed and limited as a mix. It's impressive that it doesn't affect the vocal. I wonder if it's been done the way that my friend George Lever does it, which is that it's a separate bus for the vocals than it is for the band. That way you can compress the band more to get more impact out of said band without making the vocal pump before the final limiting, so that everything sounds huge without extra problems coming up. Because it's something I've run into a few times, is like if I compress the mix too much, everything starts to pump and I really don't like it. So it's something I'll be investigating more in the future. But there you go, that was Within Temptations, Don't Pray For Me, which is a very slamming mix, very loud. So thanks everybody for tuning in the middle of this heat wave. My god, it's warm. And now there's a helicopter that's come and arrest me. So thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.